Tonight, an Inuit delegation is in France to get an Oblate priest extradited for an alleged sexual assault.
I was just going to take these guys up to see where we brought the ancestors back to and rebury them here. There's 64 up there.
Sinixt people are asserting their right to exist in BC.
We have grievances with the state of Vermont.
And a group of Abenaki takes issue with the governor of Vermont. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. A delegation of Inuit led by Nunavut Tungavik Inc. met the press today in Paris, France to ask for the extradition of Johannes Revoir, an Oblate priest facing a historic sexual assault charge here. Our reporters Kathleen Martins and Brittany Guillot are traveling with the delegation all week. Kilivak Kabluna, CEO of NTI, told reporters they will meet with a judge tomorrow. She said that if the judge rejects their plea to have Revoir return to Canada, they will need the media's help. Revoir worked in Nunavut for 30 years, but now lives in Lyon, France. He is charged with assaulting an Inuk girl between 1974 and 1979, but will not return to Canada voluntarily. Now, the delegation will also meet with Canada's ambassador to France, Stéphane Dion, while they're there in Paris. Revoir denied all allegations against him when APTN interviewed him this past summer. Our team in France will be bringing you more on this trip in the days ahead. Well, according to a new government survey, most people in the Yukon want a statutory holiday commemorating the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Close to 1,300 people responded to the survey. It found over 60% of people were in favor of a statutory day. The survey also noted that employers were less likely to support the holiday at 39%, compared to 74% of non-employers. Now, the only jurisdictions to officially recognize the stat holiday are PEI and the Northwest Territories. Consultations are ongoing in Newfoundland. Pierre Poilievre is the new leader of Canada's Conservative Party. He came out swinging against the Liberal government as he met with his caucus for the first time since he was elected leader in a landslide victory over the weekend. There were cheers as he walked into the room with his wife and his baby. With just over a week to go until the Commons resumes, Poilievre told Tories that with inflation at 40-year highs, Canadians are hurting. He says that they can't afford gas, they can't afford groceries, the costs of which are only going up under the Liberals.
And so I'm issuing a challenge to Justin Trudeau today. If you really understand the suffering of Canadians, Mr. Prime Minister, if you understand that people can't gas their cars, feed their families, or afford homes for themselves, if you really care, commit today that there will be no new tax increases on workers and on seniors. None. Conservatives will not support any new tax increases, and we will fight tooth and nail to stop the coalition from introducing any.
He says it is the Conservative Party's job to transform all that hurt into hope, and that is his mission. Well, the Abenaki First Nation of Odanak in Quebec is raising the alarm over state recognition of Abenaki in the United States, where several groups in Vermont are being recognized as Abenaki. Tom Fenario explains.
It isn't every day the governor of Vermont visits Montreal. Following a speech organized by the Montreal Council on Foreign Relations, Phil Scott networked with folks and emphasized the deep historic and economic ties between Vermont and Quebec.
Relationships matter, and they run deep, and it means something.
But there was another foreign relationship in the room waiting for a chance to meet with Scott, the Abenaki First Nation of Odanak.
We have grievances with the state of Vermont and their policy of state recognition of 4 tribes that claim to be Abenaki.
Jacques Watceau is a councillor for Odanak Band Council, the largest Abenaki community in Quebec. Abenaki ancestral territory consists of large swaths of what is now known as southeastern Quebec and New England. In 2011, Vermont recognized 4 different groups as Abenaki.
They're deceiving the Vermont population by claiming a heritage that is not theirs.
Watceau says that there's a reason why the 4 organizations claiming Abenaki status do not have federal recognition. Among other criteria, U.S. federal recognition requires showing evidence of self-governance since at least 1900. All 4 of the self-proclaimed Abenaki groups in Vermont were formed in modern times. Membership applications can be downloaded on some of their websites. Prospective members need to submit their genealogy for examination before being accepted. Watso says when Odanak was approached by some self-proclaimed Abenaki in the 90s, they initially welcomed them to visit the community.
When we started asking the question, to which family are you connected and who is your ancestor? And they basically were French Canadian and they had no native ancestry at all.
The state recognized Abenaki groups in Vermont did not respond to our requests for interview. Meanwhile, Watso was able to briefly meet Governor Scott and present him a letter outlining Odanak's concerns. Scott committed to reading the letter, but not to meeting with council at a future date.
It's the first I've heard of this, so I'm a bit surprised. But again, if we will take a look at this, the legislature will be reflecting on this, and if they see fit to change the law, they can.
Currently, the Abenaki recognized in Vermont have the right to make and sell native crafts and can receive benefits such as artist grants. Complicating matters is that there are Abenaki with ties to Odanak living in New England. Watso says those that have legitimate ties are welcome to reach out to Odanak, but that the rest have no business representing the Abenaki nation.
Basically, there are a bunch of settlers that are trying to claim a history and heritage that is not theirs, but they're also promoting a culture that is not theirs in schools, in the Vermont society in general, and that is very hurtful because that is cultural appropriation, not cultural appreciation.
Tom Fenario, APTN National News, Montreal.
We need to take a break, but when we come back, coming back from extinction, we're going to introduce you to the Sinixt.
I really blame the colonial governments for creating this.
American citizens who won a decade-long court fight for rights on their ancestral lands in southeastern BC finally got to come home this summer. Sinixt, who had been forced by colonization into Washington state, returned to Nelson, BC to celebrate in their 2021 landmark Supreme Court decision. But re-establishing themselves in this country is not going to be without hurdles. Here's part one of this two-part perspective series, The Sinixts Backed from Extinction. Southeastern BC, territory of the Sinixt, Secwepemc, Ktunaxa, and Sinixt. Although the latter may not be known to you because according to the Canadian government, they're extinct. This is Valican, a pocket of land in the Slocan Valley 40 kilometers west and north of Nelson, BC. It's the site of Sinixt occupation that's gone on 3 decades and counting, believed to be the longest occupation in Canada.
These the peeps we're looking for?
Yeah, I was just going to take these guys up to see where we brought the ancestors back to and reburied them here. There's 64 up there.
In 1987, highway crews uncovered an old Sinixt village nearby. A few Sinixt scattered in the region, and also those living south of the Medicine Line in Washington state, took over this piece of land at the confluence of the Little Slocan River and the Slocan River.
It wasn't very respectful for the dead, you know. Our people believe that the dead is very sacred, you know, and our burial grounds are very sacred.
Over the years, that grew to 64, James says.
We'll go on up to the sites. If you're done in, don't try it.
On this day, some Sinixt who live in the U.S. come by to pay their respects.
But all those rock cairns, every one of them represents a reburial.
Canada considers every one of these people extinct, despite Sinixt beating the government in its own Supreme Court in 2021. They lived alongside Sinixt, Secwepemc, and Ktunaxa in southeastern BC, part of a people whose traditional territory extended from what is now Revelstoke, BC in the north, south into Washington to what's now Kettle Point. That's until settlers, fur traders, mining and logging upset the balance.
The Columbia River, one of the most erratic in the world, is being harnessed.
Then massive damming of the area caused widespread displacement. 80% of Sinixt were pushed south of the U.S. border, rounded up with people from 11 other displaced tribes, onto the Colville Reservation. It's where they remained until now.
Possible a better life for millions both sides of the border.
I think it's pretty sad to see what it's come to, but I really blame the colonial governments for creating this.
People said to me, you know, you're going to go up there and you're going to risk this and you're going to risk that, and possibly you're going to get thrown in jail. And then I told them, yes, that's a possibility, and I could use a vacation.
Rick Desotel is an American living on the Colville Reservation in Washington state. He's also Sinixt. In 2010, Desotel, a fish and game officer, crossed into Canada and shot an elk to set in motion a fight for rights on his ancestral lands, arguing their Section 35 rights aren't void just because Canada and the U.S. created a border through their territory.
I think it's fair to say the government understood that this case would change the way we would look at cross-border peoples. I think the government saw it as a very important case and took it all the way up. But thankfully, they went 0 for 4.
Over a decade, they won through 4 levels of courts, with the Supreme Court of Canada siding with them in a 7-2 decision in April 2021. COVID delayed celebrations until this summer. 100 Sinixt came from Colville to Nelson, BC as a homecoming of sorts.
The this gathering, as you see all the people here, the other, provincial leaders and Indigenous leaders, this is a networking.
Now the real work begins to reestablish themselves on their ancestral lands, lands spoken for by other tribes in the area, as well as the provincial and municipal governments, and of course settlers. Speaking of settlers, in a surprising twist, it was actually settler evidence that helped Sinixt win in court.
As a younger lawyer, I always thought I could win cases by, constructing these wonderful legal arguments. But the truth is, you win cases, certainly like this one, by having great evidence.
Old maps and missionary logs convinced the court that Sinixt had claim to this territory.
1.5 meters.
It's not lost on Finley that how they won was using evidence from settlers who helped squeeze them off their land to begin with.
We have oral records, and after generations, you lose some of those because they weren't carried out or carried on. So with the missionaries or, any explorer or trapper that did any kind of work like that, that was huge in our case to get where we are now.
Despite the win, the government still considers them extinct somehow, while agreeing they have land rights here. A small few Sinixt remained in southeastern BC in the 1900s after others went south. They made up the Arrow Lakes Band under the Indian Act. When the last registered band member died in 1953, the Canadian government swiftly declared them extinct in the region despite their descendants living on, scattered. Once off the books, their 243 acres of reserve land was given to the BC government.
There are Sinixt people on both sides of the border, and this decision benefits everybody and is enshrining everybody.
Indigenous Services Canada told APTN the Sinixt must form a representative body and apply to be declared unextinct under the Indian Act.
We don't want to jump right into that and just have it be something that you change in 5 months or you change in 5 years or in 50 years you look back and say, we should have done this. We want to be meticulous. We want to do it right the first time. So all parties involved feel like they're happy with it.
But it's not all joy. Don't forget, not all Sinixt were forced south. Some remain in the area, bureaucratically extinct, and they're not rolling out the welcome mat to their American relatives.
Well, it was a hunting rights case.
Right.
It's not whether we exist or don't exist. It's a right to come here and hunt, pure and simple. We have to re-inform people, oh no, we're still extinct.
And she questions their intent in the region, some of the most resource-rich in the province.
Their corporate structure is Colville Confederated Business Council. So it is the council's mandate to conduct business.
While she resides in Canada, she's also a Colville tribal member. She wasn't at the homecoming, but she was well aware of the long list of sponsors who made the celebration possible.
BC Hydro, Fortis BC, Nelson District Credit Union, Nelson Kootenay Lake.
In part 2 of this perspective series, Healing Within the Sinixt, what's next in their quest to restore a presence as American citizens with ancestral lands in Canada, and what does it mean for other cross-border tribes? That's tomorrow. We need to take another break, but coming up, a young dancer from Saskatchewan kicks up her heels in Times Square. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. This was submitted by John Hamilton. John was taking in the Pembroke Home Depot 7th annual multicultural festival, and he took this photo of Tammy Jones, proudly representing some of her Métis culture. If you have a great photo, send it to share@aptn.ca. Now, let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. In St. John's, we've got some showers, 15 degrees expected, 26 and sunshine for Charlottetown. 11 in showers for Kuujjuaq, Nains, sunshine, 17 degrees. Val-d'Or and Saint-Jovite and Rouyn-Noranda, 20 degrees. 23 and some showers for Peterborough, 22 and showers for North Bay and Sault Ste. Marie. Kapuskasing, 21 and showers, sunshine, and 21 for Wawa. Puckatawagan, 14 and sunny, same with you in Thompson, 15 and sunshine for Norway House, 18 and sunny for Winnipeg and Dauphin and Brandon. 21 with a mix of sun and clouds for Swift Current, 19 in sunshine for Yorkton, 20 and sunny for La Ronge and Buffalo Narrows, 16 in sunshine for Uranium City and Stony Rapids, 22 in sunny skies for Peace River and Grand Prairie, 25 with a mix of sun and cloud for Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, mix of sun and cloud for Bella Coola, 23 degrees there, sunny skies for Quesnel, 23 there as well, 17 in sunshine for Dease Lake, 21 in Fort Nelson. Old Crow, cloud and 12 degrees. Whitehorse, sunny and 16 degrees expected there. 18 in showers for Wrigley, Watee, 16 in sunny skies. Inuvik, showers, 6 degrees. Sax Harbor, -1 and sunny. RV at 10 in sunny skies. New Yacht, 6 degrees. You may even get some flurries. 6 in cloud for Igloolik, Pangertung. Chance of showers, 9 degrees. A new comedy show featuring all Indigenous comedians is set to hit the stage at one of the most recognizable comedy festivals in the world. Our Daryl Stranger has more on the show Got Land and the comedians leading the charge.
It's not just for Indigenous people, it's for allies, it's for everybody. I even say, hey, even the racists come, they laugh louder, then we can pick them out the crowd.
Janelle Niles created Got Land Comedy in 2019, seeing a need for a group where Indigenous comedians can come together.
I'm going to just help out the little guy because I remember being in that position, having no guidance, not knowing even how to tell a joke, write a joke, even stand up there, hold a mic, and making sure that they're with their own people because as much as we're comedians, we're Indigenous comedians, so some of our jokes don't translate well. So it's nice for Indigenous comedians to start out with Indigenous audiences, to have their community backing them.
Despite being around for only a few short years, most of them through the pandemic, Got Land will be at the Just for Laughs Festival in Toronto at the end of September.
So it's a really big milestone for us because Got Land, from just starting at little open mics to finally getting into the club scene of last year to now getting into the big stage of Just for Laughs, it's just showing us that we're snowballing in a great direction. So for me, it's a dream come true. And I know it's going to be a dream come true for the other comedians up here because we've worked our butts off during the pandemic. Even though we don't have a butt, we definitely worked really, really hard.
One of the comedians that's part of the show is Dakota Ray Hebert, a Dene comedian and actor from Saskatchewan. Ray Hebert says Got Land is an important resource for Indigenous comedians to be mentored by other Indigenous comedians.
It's really intimidating when you want to do stand-up and you feel like you're, the only woman in stand-up or the only Indigenous person or the only Indigenous woman or etc. So having this company help showcase Indigenous artists and comedians, I think is really important just to help people, I guess, just give that little bit of courage to try to do it.
She described her set, like many other Indigenous comics, as one based on hardships faced by Indigenous people.
And I think that's a style that a lot of Indigenous comedians have, if not all, where there's, we make light of all the atrocious things that have happened. And so there's always a seed of education in our sets as well. And I think, it kind of spans across the board.
Niles says while doing festivals like Just for Laughs is a huge milestone, the main focus of Gotland is making sure those in Indigenous communities can get a first-hand experience right in their community.
Our main goal is to tour Turtle Island, so that is always our first and foremost goal. So hopefully we'll have a bus and we'll be hitting every reserve and territory and nation that we can across Turtle Island. And we'll hopefully have it in an annual recurring thing. And then by the time we're all the way done, then we start over again. So we'll have a comedy troupe touring Turtle Island. And maybe one day we'll get a Netflix special or a Crave special or something so the rest of the world can also see Indigenous comedy, because there is a lot of stuff we have to say over here that the rest of the world's not hearing.
Gotland will have 2 shows at Just for Laughs Toronto on September 30th. Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Renowned jigging champion Courtney Dawn Anaquad from the Muscopeting Saulteaux Nation in Saskatchewan recently made a memorable road trip to the Indigenous Fashion Week in New York City. Anaquad is seen here jigging on stage as she modeled and danced for the audience. Her jigging performances opened and closed Indigenous Fashion Week. Anaquad drove to New York City to model, and on her way made several stops to jig in all of the states that she passed through. Here she is jigging in Times Square. The mom of 2 is well known for jigging in stilettos when she performs with her square dance group, the Capel Valley Square Dancers. That is amazing. Well, that's your news to kick off the week. It's always thankful that we have you here joining us. If you have missed any Indigenous news recently, you can get caught up on our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.